This is the Lydia and Spin with Lydia Lunch and Tim Dahl. I'm here in Brooklyn and Tim is in Berlin.
I'm
Now,
in Berlin, and we just played our concert on Sunday and had a great time seeing Mike Hoffman and many friends. And shows that was a really good one. I was
nothing
very
beats
satisfied with
opening,
that.
nothing beats opening with War Pigs, that's for sure.
Well,
I
it's
mean,
very appropriate.
fortunately, that day was a little cooler, but we are having the worst air quality in the world. Detroit, Chicago, and New York. It's passing because of the Canadian wildfires, but this is something we might all need to know of soon. So, Dutch company Loop Biotech, who are behind the design called the Living Cocoon, which is a biodegradable casket which dissolves in 45 days, made out of mushroom species and upcycled
Oh,
hemp.
whoa.
Yeah, they pad out the interior with soft hemp like you care when you're dead and a pillow of moss with the option to upgrade to a bed of wool or soft cotton. So this is very interesting. I mean, it sounds great. So, and it's cost, I don't know what an average coffin costs, but this costs around $3,000. They look
Well, the
good.
thing is,
And,
if that thing just biodegrades and then your
yeah.
body biodegrades, what's the point in
Yeah,
having one at all? Just throw your fucking body in a
well,
hole.
I say ashes to ashes, but why not? Anyway, that's I'm all for the you'll never find my body. That's just me though.
Well, speaking of a body, Asher Watkins, very well known in the big game hunting scene, some
Ah,
gazillionaire, um, was
another
hunting
asshole.
buffalo in South Africa and a large Cape buffalo, which is also known as Black Death, one of the maybe the most aggressive game that these guys like to go after. Just fucking mauled him to death. I mean, just gored him to death with his horns. I mean, when those things, they supposedly when they get scared or hurt, they don't go from like whimpering, they go into insane buffalo rage and just fucking gored
Well,
this
can
guy
you
to death.
blame him?
Well, I
No.
know. I mean, what do you expect?
You
It
know,
wouldn't have
why,
happened if he
why,
wasn't
what is the
picking on
point of
this
this?
thing.
You know what? To me, when I hear the term hunting big game, I don't think of the savannas. I think of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Just saying.
No, we're not,
Just saying.
well,
Uh,
I mean, that is
every
pretty
day.
infuriating. I mean, just because this quote of a big, beautiful bill, um, they are really
How
because
about
they're
big bullshit is what should be what it's
well,
called.
just nothing but bullshit. But because of the budget for ICE being so big, they're just pushing everything through, and they got rid of age limits. So they basically just want to get any sadist in there, and they to go pick on just people that they picked on.
Average people that want to support their family and will do the jobs that nobody else wants
In
to
one
do.
week, they had 80,000 applicants in the last week. So
Oh,
they're pushing them through, and these guys are given a green light just to harass anyone they fucking want. Basically, it's fucked.
I can only
Um,
quote, the time has come today. Something's got
well,
to
also
change.
the Constitution sections of
Yeah.
due process and foreign
Oh,
gifts somehow magically disappeared from the website, Congress website, and they're like, "Oh, it's just like a coding error or something like that." Like that's
such
interesting. If
idiots.
those
Well,
things
I mean,
disappeared.
I think one of the dumbest fucking things I've heard in the last few days is this idiotic Sean Duffy wants to like, oh, nuclear reactor on the moon, and also
Oh,
then
that.
the idiot Orange Ascalon like we should have some nuclear bombs on top of the White House. Well, yeah, and I'd love to see them detonate. You fucking idiots! Like,
God.
why do you want to have a nuclear reactor? Focus on this planet. Focus on the people here. Stop with your space war dreams and your satellite fantasies and just get down to reality, please. I mean,
And
can we
what
not have
I mean, what's the
reality?
goal? What's the goal of that exactly? Like to power space stations up there?
Quickly replace the International Space Station. I mean, it's just bullshit. Come on. I mean,
Well,
first of all, how long it would take and how much money it would cost. And by the way, again, people don't realize what's ever on the moon, it's full of toxic dust. The moon
well,
is
speaking of
toxic dust.
outer space, they want the White House wants to. It probably will happen. They're going to cut the satellites that measure climate and what's actually happening on the Earth. He's like, no, we're going to stop funding that thing and let it just burn up into our own atmosphere, and just so we don't know anything that's happening. Like, okay, man, and that costs huge amounts of money. It gave us huge amounts of information for so many things beyond just like what temperature it is. I mean, this guy's a fucking moron.
Well,
I don't.
when you have sadistic, idiotic, anti-science, anti help for the individual, billionaire butt buddies in charge of everything, things are going to turn rancid pretty soon. And here we are. Welcome to the world at large. The big
Yes. Well,
bullshit bill.
I'll just use this to plug. I have a show with Azumi in Hamburg. Well, you're gonna get this on Friday, so it's a Thursday. I'll be in Hanover on Saturday, and then Antwerp next Wednesday, and Berlin next Saturday. So I'm looking forward to that. I had a great time with you. I know you have something coming up on the 17th, which I unfortunately I'll miss, but I'm sure that'll be great.
TVRI August 17th with Joseph Keckler and Grace Berger. Looking forward to that and every other thing that we have on the back burner. In the meantime, it's midnight for you, past midnight for you.
Yeah,
We got to
I'm
go do
ready.
what we do when the hours are dark. And I'm going to go, I'm going to go watch some.
I'm actually gonna crash out. I got a big day tomorrow, so I
All
gotta.
right. Well, then in that case, I'll just say good night and Timothy Seymour Dahl. This is Lydia Lunch, and we are here with the Lydian Spin. Goodbye, good
Good.
night, and see you soon.
See you soon.
This is the Lydian Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, and Shannon Sky, who I just met a few weeks, maybe months ago, at the Naropa Kerouac School of Disembodied Poets, where they are going for their MFA in creative writing. Poet, photographer, publisher, activist, world traveler, and right hand to Anne Waldman, and did a lot of helping for me too when I had to corral in those however many students we had in the class, of which you were in my class. Welcome, Shannon.
Thank you for having me, Lydia.
Yes,
It was
welcome.
such a good time at that. That was the second time I was at Naropa doing a workshop. It was really fun, I do believe. Gloss
So
those lips, baby.
Oh yes. So what was the interaction like between the two of you initially?
Love at first bite.
Yeah,
Oh, nice.
absolutely.
Nice.
Um,
Cool.
I grew up, knowing of Lydia professionally, and I was a fan of her work from the time I was a young kid. So it was actually one of the reasons why I chose to come to Naropa this summer. I actually have my MFA. I completed it last year at the Jack Kerouac School of Disembodied Poetics. And I was thinking of coming this year to help out Anne. And there were a couple of classes I wanted to take. And then when I saw Lydia, I was like, well, that's it. I'm going for all 3 weeks because
Oh
there's no
yeah.
I mean,
way
and
I'm
Anne
going to be
Walden has
there.
done so much for, I mean, the school, St. Mark's Poetry Project, just poetry, literature, and voices for so long that, I mean, it was grand to go back for my second time. But so how many times had you, what was your time like there? How much time did you spend there? Because I know you also had a class under Thurston Moore.
Yeah, I've been associated with the school now for over 3 years. So because I went there for my MFA, which was two, and then I've stayed almost as active since I've graduated as I was when I was pursuing my master's degree.
Why did you
Largely
even
as an
decide to go for a master's in fine art? First of all, you're so artistic. You have so many different disciplines, and you're just so diverse. Anyway, what does that mean to you to get that in your back pocket?
Well, it meant a lot. It was the fulfillment really of a childhood dream. I mean, if the short version of the story was I had come out of a career and I was going on a couple of different travel trips. I went down to Alabama to see the civil rights sites. I went down to Florida to see the Everglades, and I went to Colorado to photograph the beach sites. And while I was in Denver photographing like Neil Cassidy's house and things like that, I took a bus over to Boulder for the day to see the campus of Naropa and the Allen Ginsberg Library. And I sat on the steps of the Allen Ginsberg Library on the campus of the Jack Kerouac School. And I pulled out my copy of Howl and Other Poems, the Little City Lights book that we all had when we were kids and still adore. And I read it on the steps. And I gave myself a little tour of the campus. And as I was leaving, I thought to myself, you really wrecked your life. You should have come here for undergrad, and your whole life would have turned out differently. And the little
Hmm.
light bulb went off above my head.
Well, I'm going to just
Well,
say you've had
maybe
an
it's not too
incredible
late.
life. Wait a minute. You've had an incredible life that's gone through so many different phases. And you just mentioned three places that you went to photograph, but I remember one day at the school you asked me, Lydia, is there any country you'd like to go to? And I think you told me, correct me if I'm wrong, that you'd been to 35 or was it 65 countries?
It's 35, but we might get to 65. We'll see. But 35 countries on 4 continents and all 50 states. Yeah.
And a lot of that is in your photographic investigation and documentation.
Yeah. The photography is a really important part of what I do. It really feeds the poetry, which is, what my main art is writing. Uh, and I take the photos and refer back to them, and that's where I draw a lot of my inspiration for the poetry. I don't do a lot of writing when I'm on the road in the moment. A lot of it is
Me
I'm
either.
there to experience the moment and then try and put it into words later.
Which is
Hmm.
why I don't like people to get out their cell phones and tape a live performance, live in the moment. And I'm the same way about writing. I can barely even read when I'm on tour. I just have to experience and then later put it onto paper or on the stage. Let's talk a little bit about the class for a minute because everyone in the class that I can't even say I was teaching, I was cattle prodding, and nobody really needed it because, and I guess the quote unquote students, we'll just say participants, were like from 18 to I don't even know, all the way up to me. And every single person, so many of them based their writing, their poetry, their literature on real life experiences, which is to me the most important thing.
Yeah, but Lydia, I would also say that from the beginning of the class, the class was called From the Page to the Stage, right?
That's what my
And,
workshops are called.
yeah, and your workshop, I think it not only encouraged people to draw on their experiences, but it almost made it a necessity, just kind of what we were working on, particularly, talking about how you know, depression and rage and anxiety to use, your terms kind of affect us and how the writing is both a reflection of it, a cause and an effect of it, and also an outlet and a salvation.
Well, and when I asked the class who suffers from depression, anxiety, or rage, everybody but one raised their hand. And I immediately went to him because he goes, I have to take care of too many people, which is kind of my position, to
That's
have
funny.
those emotions. And and he also threw down, everybody threw down. It was a spectacular experience, I think, for myself and everybody in the class. And hopefully get once more because this is what we live to do is share our experiences. And the main point is no one is truly alone.
How
No,
many
that
people were
that
in this class? How many people attended this class?
Was it like 12?
Oh,
it,
so it's pretty intimate.
I think we ended up with about 10 as one people got pulled off for one reason or another. But yeah, no, we had a very intimate group, and it was a very good group. There was everyone who was in there was so talented. The 18-year-olds were geniuses. I mean, everyone was a
Hilarious.
genius.
Well, and also I was very happy that Ambrose, Ann Waldman's son, who I've known and recorded with, he does a lot of recordings. Like when they have classes, he records them. Talented musician, great guy. He came to all the classes, and he doesn't usually throw down poems, but he every day came down throwing down a poem, and I was very excited about that. I have to say, yeah,
Ambrose is really talented in his own right. He runs, fast speaking music. He's a great producer, a great engineer, a great
great
musician.
musician, yeah.
And we found out he's a poet too, which, yeah, Lydia, I wasn't familiar with a lot of his poetry, even though,
Well, I don't think he
we're
was familiar
practically,
with this. He wasn't familiar that he was a poet until he's in the class and he just felt the cattle prod was going to reach him one way or the other, so he better throw down.
yeah, we're like step siblings, and I've never heard their poetry till you got it out
He
of them.
doesn't talk that much, so But let's talk about not only your own writing, which you're going to read some poems for us in a minute, but you also publish. Actually, you're working on now a chapbook or a book from the students that were in our class, and you focus to a lot on the beats. I mean, both in your photography, like their grave size and all of that. You're very interested, and you're founder of Latter Day Beat Books, which is certainly better. It's kind of the Latter Day Sinners. Right?
That was, it was definitely a play on that. Yeah, Latter-day Beat Books.
Yeah, and so I mean, and the same with me. I mean, I think it's very important. This is why we have the podcast. This is why I produce and curate forever shows with various people. It's so important to get other people up there, whether it's printed or just spoken.
Yeah, and Latter-day Beat Books, which mostly specializes in small run chapbooks, it's essentially non-for-profit because I don't run it as a commercial enterprise. So there is no website. You can't buy the books in any conventional way. We take them to readings and we hand them out basically. If you ask for one, you'll
Well,
get one, but
well,
but
and I love
they're
that.
not generally for sale.
I love that in your so-called resume you said, "Look, you don't do social media," which I respect a lot. I don't do my own social media. I have to have it up there for a billboard. And you're like, either you know me or you don't. And it's because we're both road dogs as well. Like we do take it to the streets and then to the stage. I sell most of my stuff at the merch table. That's just the way it is.
Punk rock, right? That was kind of the model, the
Well,
old
I'm
rock and
punch
roll
rock,
model.
honey. Punch rock.
Punch rock, sure. The DIY. How about that? The
Yeah, or the
DIY
DIM.
expression.
Do it myself. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. I know you
Tim,
always
Tim,
identified with
Tim just got to
no
Europe
wave more
this.
than punk, but
Yeah, I'm no wave. Tim just got to Europe this morning, so and it's midnight there, so he might be a little sleep. I've never heard him so quiet, so I'm going to give him a chance to
Well,
let
no,
him
I
know.
just yeah, it's been a long day, but don't mind that. I'm here.
where are you,
He's
Tim?
listening.
I'm in Berlin right now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
One of
Yeah.
the few capitals of Europe that I haven't been to.
Oh, yeah.
Unbelievable! Wow.
I've been in Germany quite a bit.
But you
The
haven't been to Berlin.
Rhineland, not to Berlin, no.
Well, okay.
It's a
Well, it's
lacuna.
gonna
I
it's
have to
gonna be
remedy
there.
that.
It'll be there when you're ready to
Well,
go.
we
Yes.
hope so.
What I found very fascinating about you, Shannon, is that I both because of our I don't even know what your age is, but you're older than most of the students in my class. Not as old as me, who is. I'm just saying that would be in centuries, but that you've gone through so many different phases of existence. And you showed me some early pictures, which were absolutely stunning. The transformation you've gone through. I consider myself like a musical schizophrenic. You're almost a lifestyle schizophrenic, and that you are forever progressing and changing. I mean, you showed me pictures of when you were like, I don't know if you were working with Vespas, but you were like a Vespa superstar, skateboards, punk rock lead singer, always interested in fashion and music. And now there's a black and white cat on your bed.
Oh yeah,
Fluffy.
that's Hermione. Yeah, like the HD novel,
What
not the witch.
what's a Vespa superstar?
Scooters. I was a
I know.
mod
I
kid.
mean like
Yeah,
Well,
like
if you
brick
saw them
suit
next
on
to
this.
a Vespa, you'd say
there,
superstar.
there was the remnant of the last big mod revival was still kind of dying out when I was kind of, that age, and I got really into scooters and the mod scene. And there was a little mod scene where I grew up.
Where was
And
that? Where?
it was in Chicago.
Uh-huh.
And we're talking late 80s, early 90s, that there was still the last breath of that. And then that kind of collapsed as people aged out of it. And the kind of the next big thing after that was I went away for my undergrad to a state school, and I got a scholarship for radio. I showed up and I knew all these things about Chicago blues and jazz music and Jamaican music, and they basically gave me a scholarship on the spot. That's the kind of thing that doesn't
For
happen
radio,
anymore.
which is so amazing.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah, that doesn't probably happen anymore. But that
Which,
was
which
how I
I'm
ended
sorry,
up.
which state school was that?
It was Eastern Illinois University.
Oh yeah, they have a pretty good music department there, like a big jazz department.
They did 30 years ago.
30
I
years
think
ago. Yeah, exactly.
I don't think it's been maintained, but Henry Butler was there, Sam Fagley was there, but Henry Butler after he left the university, there was one time I was at Mardi Gras in New Orleans, and he was playing in the French Quarter, and me and one of my college friends went to see him, and we went early, and the bouncer was like, "No one can come in, no one can come in," and we kind of forced our way in, and we saw Henry Butler sitting at the bar. And as the bouncer was getting ready to forcibly eject us, we shouted like, "Mr. Butler, it's Shannon from Eastern." And Butler turns to the bouncer and says, "I recognize these folks. Let them on in. I know them." Well, the funny thing about that is I recognized that Henry was blind. But he heard us say we're from Eastern Illinois University, and we did.
I mean, college radio was so important. I mean, it was very important when I was a teenager, which is like, the early to mid 70s before I went to New York. College radio was really important. And I think it stayed kind of relevant until some stations are still relevant, but it's such an important medium for people to just hear stuff more than going for 30 seconds on the internet and blah, blah, whatever. But it was important because people, you could, if you like the DJ at the station, they really would expose you to things you might not have heard. Very important.
Well,
that's what we do.
The times are so different now, but I think really that early 90s period when I was there, I know we all have a tendency to remember our era and say, well, it was worse before I got there and it's worse since I left. But there is really a case to be made that maybe that college radio thing reached its apex there in those early 90s years, 92, 93, 94, when Nirvana broke and the labels were trying to figure out how they could tame this beast and make money off of it, but it hadn't happened yet. And it was a really exciting time. I was actually pulling records for a jazz show in the early afternoon on the day we got a phone call to the station where somebody told us that Kurt Cobain was found dead. And we went on air and announced it.
I like how you put that.
Yeah, well,
found dead. Thank you.
He was.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, he was.
But
so what kind of jazz were you into? I mean, look, Chicago always had an incredible music scene. I mean, from blues to jazz. But what were some of your favorite things? Just because you have such an eclectic taste in everything, though.
In the same way that I've kind of been through a number of personal reinventions. What I've listened to in terms of jazz has changed over the years. But I was listening to jazz very early. I got into jump blues when I was still like 15, 16 years old. And from there, I was able to kind of work my way backwards into jazz. What was I listening to primarily in the 90s or now, Lydia?
Well, either both. Thank you.
I'm in the 90s, I was listening to a lot of like jive and bebop. Now I listen mostly to like cool jazz and been getting really into free jazz the last few years and also fusion. So like the styles that kind of I turned my nose up to when I was younger and didn't know what I was talking about. Be like, no, okay. I listen to cool jazz. I don't listen to Weather Report. They're trash, And Weather Report is there was like 2 years recently that's almost all I listened to was Weather Report and Ferris.
Well, the thing about Weather Report was like I would say, even though as a bass player, my favorite Weather Report was with Miroslav, not with Jocko. That's a little more on the avant-garde. I mean, fusion is interesting because the trajectory went from pretty avant-garde to the Florida Vacation with the Family. And you turn on the Weather Channel and it's Muzak. So I mean, it can cover a lot of ground, right?
Yeah,
you get those like Bob James records where they're like you can't really those. Yeah, they have an almost very dated, almost a smooth jazz sound to them, but they were tremendously influential on a lot of music that came after it.
For sure,
it's just very interesting.
You listen to a lot of music now. I mean, I rarely listen to music just because I'm have so much in my head already, but.
No, almost constantly. Yeah, that cake got baked fairly early in my life. And I mean, when I say fairly early, like when I couldn't, the stereo, we had one of those like entertainment centers and the stereo was on the top shelf. And as a child, like my parents got me a stool that I could stand on to turn the stereo on because I was constantly on them to put
So
the
second,
stereo
let's get
on
back
for
to
me.
as a child. What were you playing as a child? Like, what did you reach up to that entertainment system to put on as a little
So,
baby, Shannon?
yeah, some of the earliest music that I remember hearing is of course what was on the radio. But it would be things like I remember hearing Born to Run by Bruce Springsteen. I remember faithfully hearing Call Me by Blondie. That made a big impression on me at a very young age. Um, who are not who are you, but You Better You Bet by The Who. I remember that at a very young age. Carole King. I had a Carole King children's record that I just listened
Oh
the
my
hell out of. It was
When,
Carole
how
King.
old were you when you had Carol King?
Carole King with Maurice Sendak, Really Rosie, if you're familiar with that. That was a big Brooklyn type retrospective.
When did you decide that you needed to start making music, and what did that reference? Because I mean, you told me you had a punk rock, hardcore punk rock band
Yeah,
in Chicago. What was that called, and what were you referencing at that point? What inspired you in that phase of music then?
well, my entire childhood, I was just in love with music and rock and roll in particular. And I really wanted to be in a band my whole life, but I didn't have the talent. I was not musically talented. I couldn't. I tried learning
Didn't
guitar, and
stop me, honey. Did not stop
yeah,
me.
right. It eventually didn't stop me either because I figured out when I was in college, I met some people from the St. Louis area, what we call the Metro East, which is the Illinois side of the St. Louis suburbs.
That's where
And
Miles Davis is from, East St. Louis,
that's
Illinois.
precisely where, and I
Yeah.
photographed the statue there that's in
Mhm.
Alton. These cats were from Belleville mostly, but they were really talented and doing this kind of like math rock type thing, and nobody was coming to the shows and they weren't getting gigs.
You're talking about like
And I said,
Dazzling Killman? Or
yeah, yeah, similar to that. Very similar to like Dazzling Killman. Their band that was probably their biggest influence was a band called Shiner, which
oh yeah,
may
yeah, yeah,
never,
I've heard of them.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So I
Tim
said,
also
hey,
has Tim spent time in Chicago. Yeah.
I was
oh,
born there. I played professionally with Von Freeman actually.
oh, the great, the saxophone great.
It's actually yeah, but that's all I ever did. But
I'm
yeah,
sure if you and I talked Chicago, we would probably find people we knew and potentially even places we may have been on the same day.
potentially,
Go right
potentially. So
ahead.
But I went to this band and I said, I like your music, but you're not getting booked because you're boring. If you put me in the front of the band, I will ruin your band and we will get booked and we will play shows.
I'll
So
ruin you, and there'll be more people coming.
yeah, do you want to have this great band that nobody comes and sees? Or do you want to have this like awful, awful hardcore punk band and we get, we play for lots of free beer and we occasionally get a payday? And they opted for the latter. And kind of the jumping off point for me would have been, West Coast hardcore. Um, that was kind of what I was thinking of at the time. And that was kind of what I did. I got in front of them and did Cookie Monster vocals and, dressed in the classic hardcore outfits. I hand stenciled, Face of the Assassin on a work shirt and tore the sleeves off of it. Put my hair in all kinds of funky positions and sprayed it and got on stage and threw myself around and did the whole Pete Townsend thing where I got an old guitar that didn't play anymore and I would smash it at the end of the show. And then when everybody left, I'd pick up the pieces, go home and glue it back together and put it in the vise. And then next show, smash it again. There was one afternoon I smashed the guitar at a show and then we had a gig again in the evening and we were all going to go drink and I said I got to go home and vice the guitar and they said why? I said because nobody's going to believe I broke the same guitar twice in a day, so they're going to
Nice.
think it's going to maintain the illusion, the fiction, so I got to go get this guitar in the vice so I can smash it again tonight, which I did.
What clubs were you playing at in Chicago at that point?
We did not play in Chicago, but we played in
Ah,
St. Louis, club called
okay,
313, and then we played in Terre Haute, we played at the U of I. We were a college band basically.
right.
So, yeah, we
How long
we
did that?
played
How long did that phase of your of your life go on for?
Well, the band was together a little over a year, and then we did a bit. The band was called Seabass. Yeah. So when the bass player went away to get a master's degree in bass, and eventually got a PhD in composition and teaches at our alma mater. But when he went away to college, that broke
Who's
up the
that?
band.
Who's
Brad
that?
Decker. Brad Decker.
Okay, maybe I know the name. Yeah, cool. Wow.
So that was my little stretch in hardcore. And what I do have to say about it, it was consistent with a lot of things in my life, in that it was something that I dreamed of doing, and instead of dreaming about it, I went and I did it. And the other thing I can say about it is, well, we weren't, a successful band. We were tremendously successful from my point of view, because everything I accomplished with that band completely was disproportionate to how talented I was. I had the talent to do nothing, and I got to be in a hardcore band.
No
All right.
comment on that. I think you have many talents and you seem to fulfill most of them. I don't know what's left, but I love also that I love your travelogue of photography and just going to all these places, kind of in whether it's in series or not, like whether you're going to graveyards, whether you're, the cemeteries of certain poets or etc. I mean, photographic series are very important. And I always think that photography is capturing a second that will never exist again, whether it's the light, whether it's you're doing a portrait of somebody. And it's just this moment, the second in time that exists only when you capture it, which I think is pretty freaking stellar. And now your latest photograph, well, one of your latest is Anne Waldman's, the cover of Anne Waldman's new album, which is out soon.
Yeah, it's out now. In fact,
Out now.
I'm holding
What's it
a
called?
copy. I'm holding a copy here. It's called Your Devotee in Rags. And yeah, I was asked to provide a cover photo
And it's
for it. And
gorgeous.
yeah, thank you. I was really honored to be asked, and really just mind blown when I got got a copy
Well,
of it.
Shannon, you're so organized and disciplined in spite of the fact that you're also all over the place, all over the world, and all over and out in and outside of your own mind at all times. But one thing I really liked about you, which is what I share, which is what Tim shares, is the discipline you have to get things done. Like you're going to get something done. You're going to make the call, you're going to do it then, and it's going to get done. And that's it. And that's why that you're I mean, your Anne Waldman's like main assistant, because again, so many times when people are very creative and she does so much, you need somebody to help you who you can trust and who can get the shit done without like falling all over it.
There's a number of people who provide a lot of help to Anne. So I don't know that I would say I'm the primary, but I do tend to think of myself as
I saw some of what you do.
the girl Friday, the one that like it's got to get done. Like
I gotta tell this funny piece of poetry gossip. We were all sitting out after one of the classes. It was like, I think, towards the end of the run. You're there, I'm there, Anne is there, a bunch of other people are there. And of course, everybody's in black. And I have a black purse, and Annie has a black purse, and she's about ready to leave. And by accident, she picks up my purse, and she's like chomping on some crackers that you got for me because I need my 5 a.m. snack. And I go, Anne, all right, I've learned a few things from you. Now you're learning from me how to steal a purse. You're eating my crackers. She was horrified. I said, hey, no biggie. I'm just saying, if you weren't eating the crackers, we would have had a problem. And I thought that was so cute because she's like, I was really hungry. I just thought somebody, which she probably meant you, would have put some crackers in my purse. I'm like, Anne, no biggie.
That is the sort of thing I would do.
I'm going to meet me another pack of crackers. I'm going to need them at 5 a.m.
Sneak some crackers into the purse. Yeah, that is
something
the sort
you
of thing.
do.
Yeah.
So right now, where are you right now at this point? Are you in Chicago?
No, I'm in rural Illinois at the moment. So I have
which town?
It's the very tip of Bloomington. Really, it's the tip of Normal, Illinois, where ISU is. If I walk 20 minutes down the trail to the south, I'm in uptown Normal, and if I walk to the end of the road north, I'm in a cornfield.
Yeah, so you're in the serial killer zone of the Midwest, basically. I mean, Ed Gein was Wisconsin. Was he? Or was he Illinois? It was
No,
No,
he's
right
Wisconsin.
around there though. Is
he was Wisconsin.
he was
There
Wisconsin,
was
but
I can't wait for the Edging Monster by Ryan Murphy to come out soon.
I was driving through a small little hamlet as I often am down here, and it was called Beeson, Illinois, and there was something really wrong about it. There were horses grazing in the front of the abandoned high school. There were empty lots all over town. There were it seemed almost like a ghost town, which you run into sometimes, particularly where there used to be coal in Illinois, and we're not digging coal in most of Illinois anymore, and you have literal ghost towns. But this was something different, and it felt wrong. And I went home and I Googled it, and yeah, there had been a massacre that took place in
Yeah.
that town
Well,
where
and trust the
Wow.
witchiness in you because that's how that we're serial survivors. We're not
Oh, I
serial
felt
killers.
it.
Well, if we were, we wouldn't admit it, but we're serial survivors. That's
be,
what we are.
before I even found out about the massacre, I was like, I was talking to my therapist and I said, there's something really wrong about this place I
Wrong.
was in today. And then, you know, I found out, yeah, this guy snapped and killed his girlfriend's family, killed like 7 of them, beat him to death with a tire iron. It's a pretty
But
infamous.
it's why we're both still alive because you
what
also have
wasn't Ronald Reagan born around there?
how that makes sense.
He was born in north central Illinois. He's from Dixon. I've been to his home. I haven't photographed it.
Okay.
That wasn't a pilgrimage. I happened to be in town and drove by it.
Well, Shannon, why don't you read a few of your poems right now? Because now that now that my mindset is in like an abandoned barn on the end of a rural road where a serial killer might have been, I think I need some poetry to get me out of that track.
Well, okay, I'll read
Shannon
you one.
Sky reading some of her latest poetry, which will eventually be published in one of her many chapters. Is this something that's going to come out in the book that you're compiling from the class that we did, or is it
No.
something? Okay.
Yeah, this is something else. And in fact, this is actually aiming a little bit higher than a chapbook. I'm finishing up a poetry manuscript, and I do think that Anne has really encouraged me to find a publisher for that. So we're
Great.
probably going to
So
work
a
on
poetry
getting a
manuscript,
publisher.
and also aren't you writing like a novel based kind of on your life as a college radio
Yeah,
DJ? Yeah.
it's not really based on my life, but it is about a young
Right.
woman working at a college radio station in the 90s and all the love and drugs and sex and queerness that was going on
Can't
there in the
wait.
90s.
And in the
But yeah, no,
meantime,
it's
how about a couple of
the
poems?
the characters are all fictional, but the events are largely based off of things that happened to
They're
me.
all
But
guilty, whether they admit it or not.
yeah, here's one called Past Natures and the New Now. Embracing, bodies surround each other, totally stoned in our Soho hotel room, our bed, me laid flat, disassociating. You play Sweet Jane, Sweet Jane, Sweet Jane. Don't know the year, don't know the here, don't know if this is happening. No you, no somewhere else, no sometime else. We were both someone's else. Maybe animals. No you. No, you are here. I am too now. Now is all, and all is almost enough. Satanic beer and backblats seem to scream at me when you glare. Normal New York day, foggy secrets of past lives. I know what you like. Do you remember me? Recognize the energy? Mermaid soul returns, body sits up. Get a cab, hit the reception. Cannibals and cannabis. The endless night ends and we split a final joint. Sit hotel stair seats, seeing sky stars, sin before dawn. So many desires.
So many
Mm.
desires. Give us another one. Go ahead.
Okay. Manhattan Indigo.
Sounds good.
Everybody is beautiful in New York, and it still hurts. Birdland bossa nova dream come true. Brazil followed me, let me follow you downtown, crushing on you something awful all the way. The village aligns, magic signs, and Waldman knows, and I'll bet Andy Warhol did. There are things on McDougal Street that are pyrotechnic to behold. These days, cowboys and dolls and junkies are fewer and farther, considering the same old used to be. Still a few in the flesh, having a good time together. Walk Washington Square Park and shuffle through Tompkins Square. Shoot her passing cock, squawking a Jack homage. Doing all right. Heard a crow, gave the dying garden a great big kiss. Just another soldier in Frida's army. Torch it azure while these visions of Elizabeth Street obscure everything except my mind's mirror reflecting the dead sainted child brother I never had. Pop blues, stupendous. Cool blues, dark shadows. Charlie says, give dial 202 a spin. This is always cheers. God bless Eileen and all the Chelsea girls. Nico saying, this is the end. Homeward bound. Got an order of carry out bronchitis. Burned too many loose joints. Breathed too much smoke, cold air, and April's dank Hudson water fume every night-timer's velvet Soho witching hour. Things that didn't happen. Stoke. Intense. Longing.
Thank you so much. Now, look, even your poetry is activist in nature, and I think everything you do is kind of an activist against, bullshit, normality, just ennui, even. But you've also done some things. I mean, you did your juvenile justice reform. You helped do that. Was that in Illinois? What can you just talk a little bit about that, please?
Yeah,
so important.
There were a number of bills that I lobbied for down in the state capitol over the course of a couple of years, and I was really when they passed. I said, I don't know what the rest of my life is going to look like, but there's probably nothing that I'm going to achieve that's going to ever be as impactful to so many people as lobbying for the juvenile justice reform.
Tell me about it. I'm curious.
Well, and also in lieu of this, Trump is like saying now we have to charge 14-year-olds with being adults when they commit a crime that we've inspired them to do by having so much poverty and so much bullshit as the bullies of the fucking planet. So important.
That recalls, one of Diane DePrima's revolutionary letters where she says, free all political prisoners. And by the way, all prisoners are political prisoners.
Thank you, Angela Davis and Diane DePrima. Exactly.
Very much what she was saying.
So what did that involve? I mean, first of all, that's such a massive project to take on. Trying to get anything changed.
One of the bills specifically was about the automatic transfers of juveniles to adult court. And that was one of the things that we were working to change because what the state's attorney was doing at the time was they were overcharging these kids to bump them into adult court. And once they were there, they would get them to plead down to a lesser offense. But then they were in the adult system. It was really just a nefarious way of moving these kids into the adult system. And I mean,
and also a lot of the judges were on payroll at that time. Like, how many can we incarcerate?
There's no point in having a juvenile system if we're automatically transferring so many of these kids.
Right.
The judges didn't have Lydia, the judges didn't have a say. It was an automatic transfer. If you're charged with this crime, you automatically get sent to adult court, which, and then they were getting the kids to plead down to lesser offenses that they would have never been transferred for in the first place.
Right. So it's a trick. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
We were successful in getting most of the crimes that were automatically transferable carved out. There were still a few that were left in it, like murder and things like that. But for the vast majority of the crimes, we were able to abolish that practice.
So and we have to look at the core root of the crimes, which we don't. especially in young kids and teenagers. The whole social strata setup of what it is now as America is the bully of the fucking planet, as police who aren't necessarily going into the police force because they want to be corrupt but are corrupted by the system, as kids that are forced into no choice sometimes other than to commit a crime just to eat.
Well, sometimes it's not even a fucking crime. Sometimes it's not even really a crime. And that, I mean,
exactly.
That motherfucker in Pennsylvania, the cash for kids guy that was pardoned when Biden left. I mean, it's just like, what? And I mean, so not only is it often just not even a crime and some sadist judge, sometimes the judges are being paid.
Well, exactly. No, there's also that. And the thing is, if there was more art, music, literature, and creativity in kids early on in school, which is all being abolished now by, a world wrestling champion predator, that does help people channel their violent tendencies or their insecurities or their just impoverishment by society and family and the system into something creative. It would solve a lot. The same way that, there is recidivism goes down to about 10% if in prison you have an outlet for creative communication between people.
Well, Lydia, something else you just mentioned is, children and teenagers. The studies that I saw when I was working on juvenile justice is that your adult brain is not formed when you're 21. It's not until you're about 26.
26.
Yeah, 25, 26. And that's consistent, with my life. I can speak from experience of doing really dumb things, well, last week, but, well into my 20s. So,
well, there's still a part of your brain that's developing, let's face it. That's why we're as youthful as we are in spite of our life.
But that was work that I was very proud of. So,
and as you should be, because I mean, the thing is, I mean, even especially if you're talking, I'll say from 6 to 14 right now, what a tragic existence they are facing. Not as if we all haven't at any period in history, but it seems even worse now. It just seems more traumatic.
Yeah, if I think about, when I was in my early 20s doing my Darby crash routine in front of my hardcore band, and Darby was my big influence. It's just I ran into, some of the teens and 20s something in your course. And I said, in your workshop, and I said, I don't want to be pessimistic, but I'm happy I'm my age right now and not your age, right?
Exactly. Same as it ever was on a lot of fronts.
But you got through it. I mean, did you ever interact with scary, violent kids when you were a little kid?
Yeah.
Yeah, in Chicago?
Yeah.
Those are
well, because you were always transforming as well. You were always going into another style, another look, another dimension, and that freaks people out.
But also Chicago. I was living in Chicago as a little kid with my dad, and when he was like, go out and play, that was something special out there. And basically all those kids, this is in Bucktown, in Paulina, all those kids are dead or in jail, actually.
So that was we're probably not that far apart in age. And I mean, that was, I mean, the not just even being a target of violence, but even just seeing it. I remember
seeing it.
Friday night, entertainment for us was we would go to the all ages night at Medusa's, which was I was a Medusa's kid. Like I was getting in there at 14, 15 years old.
Yep.
And when they would kick you out at midnight or whenever it was, you would go to sit in the parking lot of the Punkin' Donuts and watch the skinheads rumble with the Latin Eagles. Just these huge fights would break out in that parking lot. That would be the entertainment until the police came.
What's so sad to me about that, what you just mentioned, is this, which is what's happening in this country on a total massive scale right now, is they always want to pit whoever is the other, whoever is less advantaged, whoever, and it's all classism, against each other, so that they're doing their own dirty work of prejudice, of injustice, by infiltrating kids to have a prejudiced nature. So therefore, why would kids of any, this is just what happens. And this is why I think right now it's especially important for people to realize the thing is, 1% of the population are immigrants who they should arrest. 1% of the population are trans people they can't stand. Why don't we go after the real 1% who's running and ruining everything? Right.
That,
We know who they are. Yeah.
that's been since the beginning of as soon as one person got into a higher position over the other, the you know, over once one of three people, once one of them was in charge, the first thing they did was pit the other two against each other, right?
Exactly.
Like that's, and
Which
yeah,
is
no, it is
why
a
which
moment.
is why in our life we bring these others together.
And we really do. That's our goal. As I always used to say when I was involved in politics, is that politics is a game of addition, right? You want to try and get as many people in as you can stomach, you know, as long as you can hold space for one another. You don't benefit by excluding people. It's a game of addition. You're trying to get as many people in as you can. And yeah,
Exactly,
while
because oh right, go ahead.
they're you know certainly demonizing you know gender queer people right now, but people sometimes will ask me, they're like, oh, when you were a kid, like did people think like you were a trans kid? I'm like, trans kids weren't invented when I was that age. I was just a fucking faggot, and therapy when I was a kid was getting beat up every day in the boys bathroom for 12 years in Roman Catholic school. So that's like what I came out of.
I wish I could have taught you the throat punch early on. I would have solved a lot of problems. I was lucky because my generation was, we're fucking weirdos and you can't do anything because we're cooler than you are. But that changed. That was like till 73. And then things became, I mean, they've always been horrible, but in my pocket of the universe, like, yeah, we're the fucking weirdest ones out there and fuck you. What are you going to do about it? And nobody could do anything. And so they didn't. So, and maybe because
That
they
was
always knew I was a natural born bully, that don't, you can't bully the bully. And I wasn't bullying anybody because I would have won anyway. So fuck off.
that was why I gravitated to the subcultures in the music when I was a kid, because you know it was Reagan was president, or after Reagan, you know, H.W. Bush, and then I also grew up on the far northwest side of Chicago, which was where all the cops and firemen moved to get as far out of the city as they possibly could while still living there for their jobs and
Yeah.
their children. I grew up with the kids of cops and firemen, so you can imagine how
Mm.
great that was.
Which is why I love to torture the cops, not the firemen so much. Anyway, it was Reagan that got me onto the political bandwagon as well, because that's when we really realized. I mean, we had before that the '60s failed. Nixon was a dick. The Kennedy assassination was bogus. Charles Manson tried to make a point that was, you know, ridiculous, killed the wrong people. And, you know, that really meant a lot. That period when Reagan came in meant so much to so many musicians and artists and just weirdos. They're like, this is fucking wrong. And we got to step up and speak out against it. So, in speaking
Shannon,
out and
Shannon, did you go to Whalen Public Swimming Pool in the summers in Northwest Chicago?
No, where's Waylon?
That's where was it? It's let me look real quickly. It was like this massive kind of polio era public pool, and they'd hose you down before you would go in there with this
God, no.
maze, this labyrinth. Where was this? It was
Timothy, I wish you were here hosing me down right now because I'm hot, and New York, Chicago, and Detroit have the worst air quality in the fucking world.
West Devon. Whatever.
Shannon did not.
Like,
How about a few? Let's wrap this up, although we could talk forever. And I'm so happy to be looking at your lovely face and being in your presence again. And we have so much more to discuss after this anyway. And I'm free for the next few weeks. So let's zoom till we're sick of each other.
we could do more Zoom, but I'm also hoping to get to New York again in the next couple of weeks. I was just there a couple weeks ago. I just missed you by a couple days. I left on
now
Sunday.
I'm here and I'm not. Look, you know what? Come knock on my door. I'll answer it, but I'll probably be in bed watching Animal Kingdom, which I am obsessed with. Ellen Barkin as a smother mother with 4 hot 20-year-old sons committing crimes. I'm obsessed. How about a few poems to calm me down before I go back to the last episodes?
Okay, I got another one here. The pavement hit me, and it felt like a kiss. Return of the red eye. It's a pretty good life. Yeah, it's the restaurant knife. It's the sharpest knife I've ever used. I'm a dumbass, and I'm really taken with them because I'm really taken with anyone who is beautiful and a gummy and a genius. That's just how things go in the village. Just fall in love and fall down. Everyone hates me, but I still get back up, still in love. Want to take them to Buenos Aires because that's where they want to go. It's all rock and roll. Beat me up, kick my ass, tongue me down. I love smoking cigarettes and falling down on the cement. There's something about hitting the pavement. Feels so alive. A poet should. Fuck book burning, battle for learning. Minor events at a Kansas City pet show. Queer poets are as stable as a two-legged table.
You got one more for us?
Yeah,
Let's take it out.
swords and cigarettes. Red Hot Saint kicked off the bus. Seen this movie many times and it's badly dubbed. Subtitles should be a state law. No regrets, no plans. Look for a door in the darkness. Maybe take a trip to a Fellahin village. More details to follow when the time is right. The world is lousy with Judases. There were marriage proposals and threats of suicide, death wishes and promises of homicide. Didn't answer the phone. Might be them calling from a new number. It was God calling from a burner. Whenever people say they'll be there when I die, it always turns out they lie. Buzzed enough to forget why I don't do this all the time. I'm a little drunk, but not enough to reply to you. How random. Dog looks at me, so does the owner. I flash a peace sign, get a smile back. From the dog? From the owner. Either way, I'm too old to still burn my fingers on the small cigarette butts that I smoke too long and too low. But I do.
Shannon Sky, poet, author, photographer, publisher, activist, and as they like to say, quote, I'm not commercial. I give away chapbooks. I publish more often than I sell them. I'm not on social media, and I do all of this with little or no internet presence, because that is a brainworm, and with a low profile. You either know me or you don't, and I don't care either way. We got that in common. Yes, we do, Shannon Sky. And in fact, or as I like to say, you say on this, in fact, it's better if you don't know me. I say, you think you fucking know me? Really? There are parts of myself even I don't know. Think again. This is the Lydian Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, and the ever changing and transmuting and transforming Shannon Sky. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lydia. Love you.